Cosmetic family.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Cosmetic Podcast.
Cosmetic means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomenon that is dynamic or energizing.
We're tackling topics and telling the truth.
I'm Rodrigo Ross.
I'm Keith Benson.
So today we are talking about when friends become family, featuring none other. I'm so super excited today. Yes, none other than the Lauren Koontz, President and CEO of the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, looking wonderful. She is here. We got her on the Cosmetic Podcast. Welcome, 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 Lauren.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate being invited, and I'm excited about our conversation today.
I'm so excited, and I know that y'all see this pink jacket. That is everything. Let's just go ahead and put it out there and get the elephant out the room right now. Yes.
You got it, Miss Ross. But you know, this show is not about the fashion. I know you always have to interject that, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you lead off, and let's have our conversation.
Well, thank you. So, Lauren, I will say that I've been following your journey just a little bit, and I think I got in on the tail end when you were still the Chief Financial Development Director in Atlanta, and just seeing how you managed to kind of parachute into the organization working, and then you're now in this space and you're the CEO. Like, talk to us about what it's like to parachute into an organization and then still be able to make moves and be so successful at a high level. Like, I'm so super excited that you decided to join the Y.
Well, thank you. It has been a gift and it's been a journey. I actually started out in for-profit. I worked in sports marketing, believe it or not, and very Jerry Maguire, like worked with a bunch of sports agents. And I was there, and we were working so hard, and it was this super crazy agency environment. And I remember thinking to myself, if I'm working this hard, I really want to be doing something that's impacting the community in a really positive way. And I made the leap to go into the nonprofit sector. And I worked with a few different, both national and Atlanta-based nonprofits over many years. And I got the opportunity to come to the Y in 2012. And I came in as the Chief Development Officer. And, I was really excited. But when I walked in, I really noticed that there is such a strong culture at the Y. Mm-hmm. And if you have only worked at a Y, you may not know that because you've grown up in it, right? But when you do parachute in, there is such a strong sense of culture, and that can be a good thing, and it also can be a bad thing, right? And so I think there's a strong sense of family, a strong sense of purpose, all of these positive things that were really inspiring and exciting about being a part of an organization like the Y. Some of the things, though, that I saw that I thought might be barriers for growth, one was that I thought we valued tenure more than we valued performance. Mm-hmm. And that's a broad brushstroke. So but I think sometimes, that can happen over time. I also noticed that I felt like we weren't as focused on engaging with one another, even branch to branch, or even in the community as partners. Mm-hmm. And so as I came in, I began to really think about how do we, even at that point, how do we begin to think about the culture of this organization? How do we build on the shoulders of all the amazing people who have built this amazing organization, the work that has been done? How do we respect the values of the Y? But how do we really look into the community, really understand what we need to be in the future to be relevant? And that's a big word that I use a lot, because I think what's so interesting about the Y, that, innovation's in our DNA.
Right.
You look back at our history and you see all the programs that we have invented and all the ways that we've pivoted. People are talking about the Y pivoting a lot, right, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long, long time. And so this pivot, this kind of ability to do that, I think it's part of our DNA. And so we must continually be thinking about how do we innovate and how do we look to the future for relevance. So for me, I came in, we're going to keep it honest here. There were a lot of sacred cows. And as the person who parachuted in, I took stock of, okay, this is what I've been asked to do. This is the group that I'm going to need to build my my trust with. And I learned early on that I had to be able to influence across, right?
Yeah.
It's, I can influence up at that time to the CEO, and I can influence down in terms of the group that I was managing. But really where the magic happens is when you can influence across other functional departments so that you all come together. And so I really started focusing on how can I create wins for other people when we do something together. And, it's that great quote of, it doesn't matter. It's amazing what you can do when you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
And so spent a lot of time just trying to build those relationships, creating wins that were cross-department wins, trying to break down silos and trying to kind of get the sacred cows to not be sacred cows. I mean, I jokingly would say that, I'd pet the sacred cow and I acknowledge it, and I'd talk a little, I was nice to it and I talked to it, but after a while the sacred cow needed to go over here and we weren't going to talk about that anymore. That was going to be moved off. But I think that, I really believe there is a beauty in marrying the strong culture and pride that comes from the why and what we've accomplished over so many years in all of our communities with really honest dialogue about what can be and what should be. And that again is where you start to kind of get that alchemy of innovation and excitement and looking to the future. And so for me, I kept trying to ask the right questions. I've always been very honest about the fact that I don't have all the answers, but I try to ask the right questions. Sometimes that can be uncomfortable, but I kept taking on different things too. So if there was something that was out there that I thought we should be doing and it didn't really fall into someone's department or whatever, I would just take it and I would just run with it. And so I ended up having probably a portfolio that was a lot larger than what I was hired for. Mm-hmm. And that made it natural to move into some other roles a little bit later on.
Nice. I'm so glad you parachuted. Good gracious, that is amazing. I totally agree. Sometimes we need a different perspective and we just need some fresh energy and eyes on that thing. Yeah.
Well, let me take you back home. I know you're born and raised there in Georgia, hometown in Brunswick. Lots went on in Brunswick. Can you talk a little bit about your hometown and the incident that happened there?
Yeah, I think most of us obviously have a real sense of pride in terms of the place that we grew up, and community is so important. I think especially when you're a small town, you have a really strong sense of place. I moved from that area and have been in Atlanta, my goodness, now for 25 years. So, but my family's still in the community. I get down there quite a bit. And so I have very strong ties. And when Ahmaud Arbery was murdered for what I call running while Black, there was something that really shifted for me. I think that I've spoken about this before. As a chief development officer, and then as an executive vice president of programming and operations, and then now in a CEO role, I think in nonprofits, sometimes we historically have been a little bit hesitant to talk about issues that may polarize people, right? We don't want to say anything that's going to maybe turn off this particular donor group, or, we kind of want to stay in this safe place. We're non-political, right? That's kind of the whole thing. At that moment, because I knew that street, and in my mind, Ahmaud Arbery could have been my classmate. Obviously, I'm 20 years older than he was, but I feel like I knew Ahmaud. I feel like I went to school with Ahmaud. I feel like I knew his family. And at that moment, it was no longer okay to be like, well, we can't really speak out about this because that might, some donors might not feel okay with that. Or, at some point you have to kind of say, what are my values? Yeah. And I came to this organization to align with our values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. And it's my job as, I see myself not even as the CEO, but the chief stewardship officer of this organization. How am I how am I holding up the values of this organization if I'm not willing to speak really honestly about what's happening?
Yeah.
And, you know, I actually was really, I was concerned for a while that Ahmaud would be forgotten because he died at the hands of vigilantes and not and you know, the police. And I have been really, one of the things with bipartisan support, Georgia just repealed their law of the citizen's arrest, which has been in place since after the Civil War. So that is, you know, a legislative step in the right direction. You can't have people, you know, as vigilantes going out. It's unbelievable. So I think, you know, so many people beginning to come together around this and speak out around this, and then having this law overturned, it's gratifying to at least know that something positive is coming from such a tragic situation. But it was definitely, it just, you know, it went straight to the heart.
Yeah, yeah. So we have been talking with a number of other CEOs from around the country and just talking about that very same thing, this convergence of your personal value set and your responsibility to lead the YMCA organizations into this next iteration. But we also talked about some of the fun things or the quirky things that they had to do just to maintain balance. And for me, one of my things is music. So I'm gonna tell you, when I had to get my mind together and get amped up, Every Day I'm Hustling by Rick Ross is it. So you know I gotta ask you, what is your amp song? What is on your playlist that helps you just kind of so that you can fight another day?
Okay, so I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this because it started, I started with this song because I was in development, right? And then like, as I kept going on, but you know, you never get away from raising money, especially as the CEO. I mean, I'm always out there raising money, right? So my kind of clap it up song is She Works Hard for the Money by Donna.
Yes, that's so excellent. Yes, Donna Summer. That is so excellent, Lauren. Oh,
that is my song. That is my theme song.
Yes. Yes, I love it. See, I knew we were going to vibe on that one. I knew it was going to happen.
So tell me, what was on that playlist though during the pandemic? You know, when you were doing your workout, what were some of those top songs? Now you gotta be
well, certainly, yeah, by or you know,
she's so excellent right now.
For sure, yeah. Let's see. Gosh, there's so many good ones. I mean, you know, you can't work out without Beyonce. Gosh,
okay, you got a pretty hip playlist there going on.
You know, I was jamming out last night too on my way home from work was That Thing by Lauren Hill. That is one of my all-time favorites. That's a great workout song. If you don't have that on your workout playlist, put that one on.
You know what? I'm right now. I need to get with your assistant so you can come DJ some events here in Dallas, because clearly that's your second calling right there. Your music taste is impeccable, ma'am.
I mean, I love it. I mean, you've got such an amazing music scene here in Atlanta. So it's
right.
A lot of Atlanta-based artists, you know, that's what's really cool. And across so many different genres, you know, I mean, it really is amazing to have that much, you know, just the artistry just between the music industry and now the movie industry and film industry that's here. You know, there's a lot of creative, interesting people here. Yeah. So I've got to get excited about, you know, some of my Atlanta-based folks.
Hey, now don't forget about us when Tyler come knock on the door. You know, call us up so we can come hang out. You know, we'll fly in. Don't worry about that part. Just tell us the date, and we come out hang with you and Tyler.
Okay,
I'm available. I'm available.
I'm going to do really quickly. Y'all are gonna think I'm crazy. I'm going to put on. I'm going to play one other song that I just thought of that is on my workout list that I would be really, really remiss if I didn't bring up. Hold on. Wait a second.
Not Belle Biv DeVoe.
All right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Kirk know that Kirk know that you came on jamming, and that Kirk be holding back on us a little bit.
He tries to hold back, right? He doesn't have a playlist, but it's so epic. And you guys are at the epicenter of HBCUs, and so I'm gonna brag on your association offices for a second. When I had a chance to come to Atlanta and see when they first opened those association offices, I came back to Dallas and I said, y'all suck. Like Atlanta's association offices are incredible. It is this beautiful mixture of paying homage to the HBCUs that you share the property with and incorporating original structures into this new structure. They were very thoughtful about creating diverse spaces depending on the work style you have. It is aesthetically pleasing. It is functional. Like, how do you get anything done in that building? I would just walk around the building and be in a little play yard playing instruments all day. Tell me what it was like to really, go through this process where there's this physical representation of what your association is about that marries all those things. It's a beautiful place. It's beautiful.
That's such a great question. Actually, no one's asked me that before. It's like,
I love it.
It was. I mean, we met with, architects, and we met with historians from the community over the course of a year as part of the design. And it was really important to us to pay homage to 3 individuals that we felt had really on that space had shaped arts and education, especially for that community. The piece of the building that you're talking about that's there, that was originally the first, it was called A.E. Ware Elementary School, and it was the first elementary school for African-American children in Atlanta. And next year, it's actually coming up on its 100th anniversary. And so we're planning a birthday party. Like, we're going to have an event in that space to really talk about how that center, started as a place for equal access in education for African-American children. And here we are 100 years later now with a early learning center on site that is for the children of English Avenue and Vine City in that community, and providing just fantastic, really, really amazing literacy and STEAM and all sorts of curriculums, and really how it's kind of fully come full circle. But there was a lot of thought, we really wanted to have that early learning center that is there. It's our model early learning center. So some people may not know, we're the largest provider. The YMCA of Metro Atlanta is the largest provider of childcare in the state of Georgia, early learning. And 90% of the children that we serve are poverty level or below. And so our whole focus is around making sure that kids come to kindergarten on a path to read to learn by 3rd grade so they can own their own futures. That center also, we created this fantastic training center, which pre-pandemic was full every single day with people from around the country doing different trainings. And we're really thinking about how do we use that space. We've actually been talking a little bit about what if we transform that training space and made it kind of the space where all of our equity work lives. That's the home of it, that then kind of radiates out to our branches and early learning centers. The playground that you talked about, that's a part of the early learning center, it's really amazing. It's naturalized. We brought in this amazing designer she's literally like a play designer and has studied the psychology of how children need to play. And we made it like an outdoor park. And the thought of that was so many of the children that are coming to that center don't have green spaces.
Right.
And we wanted it to inspire this sense of wonder and for them to feel like they had this huge park at their disposal and they could explore it. Right. And then of course, we have at the front of the building what was imagined originally as a cafe, but with the pandemic, we've been using it for food distribution. The other thing that we're playing with right now that we're all doing so much online content, right? We're producing wellness and others, but we're thinking about outfitting that space as a teaching kitchen and doing all sorts of live streaming of healthy nutrition or doing classes there. So I think, for me, the question will be not what exactly are we doing in that center right now, but how will it continue to adapt and evolve to meet the needs of both the community that it sits in, but also the larger association. And, we've really been very excited to really dig in and deepen our work with Morehouse and Spelman and Clark Atlanta. During a pandemic, just FYI, during a pandemic in November of 2020, we opened our new Y at Morehouse School of Medicine. So a partnership with Morehouse School of Medicine. They came to us about 2 years ago and they said, you know, we're building this new building. It's going to be student housing. We're going to have a health center in there. What do you guys think about having a Y? And we said, yes, please sign us up. And so we worked with them on the design of it. Now it's more of an express Y, right? It's got the wellness area. It's got the community room and the studio space. But it's not just for the students and the faculty, but it's also for the larger community. And right. So one of the head of pediatrics for Morehouse School of Medicine sits on our board of directors, and we're in conversation with her and many of her colleagues. And the idea is, you know, how do we bring the brilliant research that's coming out of Morehouse School of Medicine, and how can the Y right there on the campus right. be a community facing opportunity for health education, for health equity work. I mean, specifically around programming to reduce chronic disease or prevent chronic disease. And so we're really, really excited about what this type of partnership means and how we bring research into a community space at a Y to really better not only provide access and opportunity for wellness, but create better health education and promotion.
Yes, I love it. And the idea of just having an association office that's a living thing, right? That morphs and changes. It's not just in a community, it is of that community. That's amazing. You guys, kudos. Snap. That association office is excellent.
What the part that keeps you from wanting to work is the fact that you've got all these brilliant, precious children downstairs.
Yes.
You kind of look out of the window and they're all on the playground and doing fun things, and you know you just want to go out and play with them. So
yeah, and the part of the playground that incorporates music, right? Because music is so culturally relevant, and if you're in a community where it's a predominantly Black or brown population and you incorporated music into play. I was supposed to be on a tour one time. I'm playing drums. I'm on the stage. I had my own whole little show going on. So if you hear about that show, it happened.
I like it. I wish there was video of that. We could like place it in, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you wasn't. I wasn't
typical Miss Ross, just out there playing, Now, you know, what I know the ATL to be is the Black Mecca. I would tell you that I'm from Virginia, and I know I got at least a dozen classmates down there. I mean, so prior to my graduating, everybody used to go up north to DC. But then from like my class on, everybody ran down to Atlanta because that's where, like I said, they know it as the Black Mecca, where you got all this Black wealth, you know, the political and the social power that's there, the education, like we just talked about, but just this whole culture around, you know, the arts with the music, the theater and all that. And you take a look at Atlanta being 60% African-American, and that even stronger in certain parts of that area. You know, how does the Y just ensure equity within that Black community there?
Well, I think it starts with having been in the community for a long time. So our two oldest Ys, one is the Decatur Family YMCA, which is a really kind of, you know, unique, feels like a small town within the city. But the other one is our Andrew and Walter Young Family YMCA. And we call that the historic Young Family YMCA. It was originally the Southwest YMCA and renamed, but it literally opened in 1958. And so you're talking about, you know, a Y that has deep ties to the community. So when I think about a Y that really is at the forefront of doing this type of work, you know, it's been unbelievable. So the question for me becomes, again, how do we partner and create relevant opportunities? So I'll give you an example. We've been raising money. We're about to do a big renovation of the Andrew and Walter Young Family YMCA. One of my focus areas in coming into this role is that every Y should have your experience coming into a Y they should all feel like the best Y they can be, right? Of course, we always have competing resources. We all know that there's, you know, a million different projects we can do, but we need to make sure that all of our Ys are up to standard, right? So we're doing a major renovation of our Andrew and Walter Young Family Y. At the same time, the Atlanta Police Foundation over the last 5 years has developed a concept which is actually gaining national attention called the At Promise Center. And the idea is that it's a center focused on youth 13 to about 22. And the statistics really speak to we all know that the criminal justice system is a, conveyor belt, right? Once you go in, you just keep going back in, right? And that's the problem. How do you either stop it or break that cycle? And so they're really focused on both prevention, but also addressing not having recidivism in terms of kids going back into that system. So kids that have been adjudicated and others come to the At Promise Center, and there are all sorts of providers in that center. It's us, it's the Boys and Girls Club, it's mental health support, it's workforce development, it's tutoring, it's everything. They opened their first one actually really near our headquarters in the Vine City community. And so basically they came to us and said, would you guys be interested if we opened up a new At Promise Center on the property of the Andrew and Walter Young Family YMCA? And we said, that sounds great. So just in about 3 months, that center is going to open. And so we're going to have, I really believe we have an opportunity to create a campus there between this renovated YMCA and this new At Promise Center that can really be a national model for youth and teen equity work, and bringing partners across the community onto this one campus and doing all sorts of work, and really wrapping our arms around kids and teens and saying, it's not just about having a safe place to go to after school, but we're helping with, mental health referrals. We're making sure that they're getting the GEDs. It's a holistic approach. And so I think that really it's the future of the why, but it's also, I think, the future of thinking about equity, is that you have to really look at a person and a community holistically and understand how we bring partners together to address the root causes. And what role do we each play as partners? Because none of us, there's not one organization that has the resources or the core capabilities to solve it by themselves. So I think partnership is key, and really leaning into being a convener of resources that address that.
Yeah, and I know that you guys are really being intentional about your strategic plan, right? And amplifying and weaving in that and using that equity lens in all the things that you are doing. So tell us about this new version, this next iteration of your strategic plan that you kind of shifted a little bit due to the pandemic, and were intentional about putting equity right there front and center.
Well, when I came on into this role, July 2019, one of the first things, we looked at was, well, our strategic plan is going to be, wrapping up at the end of 2020. And for anybody who's listening to this right now, and you're like, oh no, she just started talking about a strategic plan, I'm going to jump off now. Stick with me, okay? It's going to be worth it, okay? I promise it won't be boring. But basically, we started saying, okay, this needs to be really, really organic and authentic. So the first decision we made was not to hire a consultant. We would do it ourselves. And so we actually created a new role called the Chief Social Impact Officer. And we hired someone to come in, and this person leads strategic planning, leads and rollout of this plan across, operations and departments. They lead our advocacy work down at the Capitol and across our communities, and they lead our partnerships work. So I brought this person in and I said, all right, we need to understand where we're going. So we did a couple things. We did focus groups with our members, with parents of kids in our childcare centers. We did partnership surveys. We did deep dives into all of our program lines with staff to really understand what's happening right now. What are you hearing? What are we facing in our communities? And what are the themes there? At the same time, we worked with the Atlanta Regional Commission to pull all of the data. We plotted all of our locations and then loaded in everything: demographics, employment, what are the housing trends, how many veterans live in this community, how many homes are single parent led, so that we could get a deeper understanding and really marry that qualitative and quantitative data. So we do all that. We're super into it. We're like geeked out about how excited we are to get all this. And we do it from, let's say, October 2019 to January 2020. And then we take it to the board task force that's kind of overseeing this work. And they were like, we love it, go write the plan. And so we're about to sit down and write the plan, and the pandemic hits. I've got to be honest with you, I did not think about the strategic plan in March, April, May, or June of 2020. I mean, I was just trying to make sure that the lights were on, the doors were open, and that we were standing up programs, the food-based work, the childcare work, that the community needed, right? But those 4 months were pivotal, because what we began to see in terms of the gaps in our community that were exposed by COVID, and then the heightened understanding around social and racial injustice, ended up really informing this plan. So when we started the plan that fall, we said that our guiding question would be, what does building healthy mind, body, and spirit, our mission fundamentally, look like for 2021 and beyond? And when we came back in July 2020, after everything we had seen and experienced, we changed that question. And the fundamental question before we sat down to write the plan, and with which we would use as a lens to filter all of that data, became, what does building healthy mind, body, and spirit with equity at the heart of our work look like in 2021 and beyond? And I really feel like that guiding question really, I mean, it infused every discussion that we had. And so much so that when we, finished the strategic plan, we then came up with what we call our equity framework, which is basically lifting out every program specifically around mind, body, and spirit that's in the strategic plan that we feel must be advanced for us to really do this work. Yeah. But then we said, that's not enough. We actually need to hold ourselves accountable. So we put out applications for our first ever equity cohort. And so we received applications from across the organization. And earlier this year, we went through a blind selection process, which is really cool. And so we ended up with an amazingly diverse group of people for our first equity cohort. It includes part-time staff, full-time staff, people who are executive directors, people who are, work in branches and all over. And we gave them the scope of work. Here's our equity framework. We're giving you the responsibility and the authority to hold this organization accountable that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. Mm-hmm. I think one of the challenges that I see across for-profit and nonprofit, and of course, a lot of organizations have had, a chief diversity inclusion officer, chief equity officer for a long time. Now, of course, everybody's, has one. Yeah. But the problem sometimes is does that individual, A, do they report to the CEO? B, do they have a budget? C, do they have the resources and the authority to hold the organization accountable?
Ma'am, yeah.
Those are the things you have to look for. That's what you have to look for. And so this equity cohort, is being led by our chief equity officer retired during the pandemic. We're actually posting for one. So, hey, everybody, if anybody's interested in coming to Atlanta to be the chief equity officer, sorry, you can take that out if it's not.
Nope,
okay.
It's staying.
Yeah. So that might get blown up now.
Yeah. That individual will really be leading that work, leading the equity cohort, leading all of our employee resource groups, right? And so this is central and at the heart of who we are and where we're going. And it has to be authentic. And so this plan to me must be a living, breathing plan that's organic and authentic. And I mean, I just get jazzed about it. And I sound like a total geek when I talk about it. And I know that I can't help it.
You got me pumped up right now.
Thing. Me too. I'm so excited. I'm like, I cannot wait to see what's going to come out of Atlanta with this new strategic plan. It's going to be awesome. And a good strategic plan and a fire playlist. You are winning on so many levels today, Lauren. Just so many levels.
Tell you what, we're gonna help get you some good candidates in for that position there. So when we post this out, we're gonna make sure that it is hey, hiring now in the ATL, go down to the Black Mecca, like go.
That's right.
Yes.
I do want to address something that it really, Atlanta is the center, I think in many ways of Black culture and Black business. Yeah. But, the challenge also is we have the unfortunate title of being, if not the top, one of the top cities for income equality. Mm-hmm. So in the community where we built our headquarters, there is a 4% chance if you're born in that community that you will reach the upper income bracket. Okay, well, that's unacceptable. That's absolutely unacceptable. So how are we going to bring people together across all demographics to tackle that and tackle the root issues around that. So, we can't have, we can't have the title of we are this center for excellence in arts and education in the Black community and be okay with so many in our community being left behind. We have to figure out a way to bridge those.
Yeah.
So how does the Y play a key role in that right there? How are you shaping up the organization to be able to support that?
Well, I think, in the mind section of our plan and have we kind of operationalize that and bring it to life. I mean, the first one is that early learning piece. Yeah. I'm a big believer of if you can see it, you can be it, right? So when you go into our early learning centers, we have messy rooms and we're doing, experiments and STEAM with 3-year-olds wearing lab coats. We want kids to understand and give them those pathways. So I think it starts with a really strong foundation there, right? Yeah. But I also think we have to think differently about, for instance, our out of school time. So, we're really reimagining and really thinking about our after school programs, our summer programs, our teen programs. How can we actually ensure that we can come alongside school systems and be additive and provide skills and workforce exposure, career readiness? How can we do these things that literally give people the skills, the hard and soft skills they need to own their own futures? And so I think you really have to get very prescriptive around what outcomes you're trying to see. It's not enough to just say it's a safe space or we want all kids to thrive. Those are really pretty words. What are you going to do from a programming standpoint? How are you going to understand if it's working? What partnerships are you going to bring to the table? I mean, right down the street from our headquarters is the Russell Center for Civic Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And one of our board members, Jerome Russell, his father was probably the most influential African-American builder in Atlanta. He changed the skyline of Atlanta, and the Russell family in Atlanta is just known for their civic and their, philanthropy. They took their headquarters of their business and they donated it and turned it into an incubator for Black entrepreneurs. And what's happening there right now is amazing. And here we are, it's like our headquarters sits right here with all of our precious early learners. And then you've got the HBCUs sitting right here, right there. And then right there, you've got the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And the question really becomes, how do you connect those things, right? How do you make sure that the kids that we're serving are getting exposure and opportunity to both the colleges, but also to seeing what it looks like to be an African-American entrepreneur and business leader and civic leader and how they can build wealth themselves.
Yeah, we definitely need When Friends Become Family 2.0 with Lauren Koontz. We need another podcast. We need to continue. This should be a mini series, not a one-time thing, because this is so amazing. And I would love to hear more about some of the things you guys are experiencing and you saw when you really get in there and get that strategic plan going. But we are running out of time. So thank you for listening to Cosmetic,
where we are tackling topics and telling the truth.
Subscribe and listen to us weekly.
Hey, and don't be shy. Give us a review out there.
And as always,
be dynamic.
Be phenomenal.
Be cosmetic.